Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's webinar. Tonight's all about picking the right property to benefit you. So, as always, it's really important that everybody understands that what we talk about tonight is general information. So it's really important that before making any decisions, obviously, individuals seek their own advice to make sure that the circumstances suit them. So who are we? So for those of us that haven't attended any of our webinars before, we are Justin and Jenny Watson. We are 34 and 33 years old. Unfortunately, tonight's the last time I get to say that. I'll soon be bumping up to the 34. We both work full time and we've got a nearly 3-year-old toddler, Olivia. We like to call her our tornado. We joined the Property Club back in 2009 and we became property millionaires in 2012. After so long in the club, we decided it was time for us to give back and help people on their property journey, and we became property mentors in 2016. We became Young Investors Club ambassadors in 2016 and we became the Young Investors Club presidents in 2018. So we really do focus on trying to help the younger generation understand the importance of taking action and setting themselves up properly for their financial future. Everything that we've achieved, we've done so on average incomes. We certainly don't earn millions of dollars. So I guess the point is that it is achievable for everybody if you, I guess, make smart choices along the way. So why are we talking to you? We've worked really hard to build our property portfolio to lead us into retirement. We're really grateful for the knowledge and the information that's been shared with us to get us to where we are. And our goal is to help others with strategies to build wealth for their future. So particularly the younger generation that will need to be self-funding into retirement. So let's recap from last month, those of you that missed out or couldn't make it to our webinar. Last month, we talked about the role property plays in your retirement. So by building your property portfolio, you'll have an asset base that will financially support your retirement. Superannuation and the pension is simply not going to cut it in the future. So that's why you need to take action and create your own wealth. So strategic planning becomes important. So why wait until retirement to reap the rewards of your portfolio? By thinking strategically and discussing options with your property mentor, you can make the best choices that helps you today as well as into the future. Everybody's situation is different, but thinking strategically and working out what will benefit you the most now while still achieving your long-term goal of property growth, it can impact just how many properties you have in your portfolio at retirement, but it can also impact the enjoyment you live now. So if your next purchase helps your finances now, it may mean you can purchase the next property sooner. So let's have a look at an example. Buying a cash flow neutral property may mean that you've got more serviceability to apply for another loan sooner, but that can also impact in other ways. So it's really important to know where you are and what you need. So let's have a look. Life cycle meets property. So this is where you need to start to have a think about where you are in your life and what you need. Do you need something where it's a lower deposit, or higher tax savings, or higher property growth, something local in order to make use of the first homeowners grant, or a higher yet rental yield? So many different scenarios to consider. So let's have a look at a life cycle. So let's say you're starting up the top there. So your first property, you don't have much savings and you need a property that you can utilise the first homeowners grant and stamp duty savings. All right, then you might move to the next stage of your life where you're career focused, you're earning more money than ever and you need tax savings. So you can see that your needs for right now are different in those two scenarios. As we move through the life cycle, you might be planning a baby, going on maternity leave. You probably need a cash flow neutral or positive property. Moving on to working life stable, no change, you need tax savings or higher cash flow. Then we get to the point where kids leave home, you've got more money available, because we all know kids drain the bank account. So more money available, more equity available, you need to add to your portfolio. So maybe 2 properties. Then as you're moving closer to retirement, so retirement's 10 years out, you need a high growth property to maximise the rest of the time in the market that you have. So all these different scenarios in your life, the ideal property will be different in each of those. So in all 6 of those scenarios, you'd be picking 6 different properties. So we're going to focus on 3 tonight and give you a demonstration as to the types of things that you need to think about and how they can benefit. So let's have a look at our first scenario. So it's your first property, you don't have much in savings. So if you're living this scenario, it's likely that you're younger, which means that you're less likely to have a big savings account. So you need to focus on property whereby you can purchase for a minimal deposit. You want to try and make use of the government incentives. And this means you probably need to buy new, and you need to buy in your state to live in the property for the minimum required time frame to qualify for the first homeowners grant. So what does this look like? So borrowing up to 90% if you can, so you need a smaller deposit. So the more you borrow, the less deposit you need. Avoiding a dual occupancy home, as you can only borrow up to 80% for a dual lock, which means you need to come up with more money. So again, that doesn't satisfy the need of a smaller deposit. Purchasing in your state, that means that you can make use of the first homeowners grant, and purchasing house and land to reduce the amount of stamp duty, which is again more money that you need to come up with. So let's have a look at some real life examples that can fit some of these needs. So a property club property in Ormeau Hills in Queensland, currently offering an $8,000 cashback, ticks the box because it's house and land, it's an up and coming area, somewhere between Brisbane and Gold Coast, full turnkey package, which means it's ready to move in, and the scenario that we're looking at is as if you've got the cash to pay for your deposit. So what does this look like with the numbers? So let's say it's 2 parties borrowing for this property, and both parties are on $70,000 a year each, just sort of taking some average incomes there. You're not residing in this property, and we're estimating that the doubling cycle might be every 12 years, which is fair and reasonable, and we're having a look at an interest rate of 4.2%. So your deposit that you need for this property is $64,000, less the $8,000 that is special to the property club members only. So you need $56,000 to get into this property if you're not living in the property, okay? But let's take a look as if you are living in the property. So again, the income is 70 grand each per year, but yes, you are residing. Doubling cycle still 12 years, and the interest rate is still 4.2. So your deposit of 64,000 less your $8,000 cash back, but the savings that you're going to make because you're moving into it is less stamp duty savings of 6.5, less first homeowners grant of 15,000. So all in all, that's $21,500 savings that you're going to have just for living in it for the first 12 months and meeting those minimum requirements. So $42,500 to get in. So you can see just by those 2 demonstrations that you need to, in order to maximize your right now, you might have to make different decisions, such as, all right, well, let's move into it for 6 to 12 months, whatever the minimum requirement is, in order to maximize and save ourselves around that $20,000. So what does this property look like financially? So, and when we put these figures together, we take into account the expected rent for the property, the cost of rates, insurances, body corporate, all those sorts of things. However, this property won't have body corporate because it's a house and land. So you can see with the red bar on the graph That's your total outflow. So that's what it's going to cost you each week to hold. Now, if you're living in it, you're not going to be getting any income back for that. So it's going to cost you the $440. But if you are renting it out, there's savings along the way, which reduces how much out of pocket you are. So then we have a look at the rental income, the green bar at $385 a week. Your tax savings just for having this property, again, remembering that we're basing it on 2 incomes of $70,000 per year, your tax savings is $110 per week. And all of this means that your this property, you're up $55 per week. So rather than it costing you to own and to rent out, it's actually making you $55 a week. So not only have you got in for as least a deposit as possible, but it is also making you a little bit of money each week along the way, not to mention the property growth, which is what you're looking for and focusing on for the long term. So remembering the main purpose was to have a lower deposit and get in quicker, but the added benefits of this property is that it still grows in value, less maintenance as it's brand new, you're still receiving tax savings, so it's cash flow positive. Not all house and lands are. So that's a really exciting property to have a look at if you are in that bracket of needing to get in quickly and needing to have as minimal deposit as possible. So let's move on in our life cycle to we're progressing in our career and we're earning more money. So a deposit's certainly not an issue for us anymore, but now we want to start saving on tax. We feel like we're spending way too much with the tax man, and now it's all about saving tax. So if you're living this scenario, it's likely that you're heading to middle age or you've been working for a while. You're likely to be earning more money than you have before, and you need to focus on property whereby you maximize your tax savings. So you want a property that will have higher depreciation, which means you need to buy brand new, and a unit generally has higher depreciation. So essentially a property that gets you a higher tax return is a property that you have out-of-pocket expenses, but it still needs to be manageable. So what does this look like? Again, borrowing up to 90% for higher tax savings, purchasing brand new, purchasing a unit or a townhouse. House and land doesn't allow for as much depreciation as a unit or townhouse. And again, in our scenario, we're paying for the deposit with cash. So having a look at a property in the club, we've got our Maribyrnong properties. They're absolutely beautiful with a stunning rooftop communal area with fantastic views. It's a unit very close to major shopping centres and close to public transport, smack bang out the front of the property, and it's completed, ready to tenant. So again, in our scenario, 2 parties, $70,000 each per year. We're not residing in the property, doubling cycle of 12 years and an interest rate of 4.2%. So your tax savings in this scenario is $106 per week, which makes so the cash flow, if you take into account the tax savings, is $90 positive per week. So it's still positive, but you're also still saving on your tax. Now, if we have a look as though you are going to move into it, obviously there's no tax savings because you're not making any income on it. So your cost to hold is $365 per week. How does that compare to rent? So that's what you sort of need to weigh up when deciding whether or not you want to buy a property to move into, or if you want to buy an investment property and continue renting. So if we have a look at the cash flow here for this property in Maribyrnong, the weekly expenses, remembering taking into account your body corporate, your rates, your loan, you're looking at around $365 per week. Your rental income is $349 a week, And your tax savings for holding this property is $106 per week. So you're up $90 a week again, which is fantastic. So remembering our main purpose was higher weekly tax savings, but the added benefits that we've got here with this property is higher cash flow due to the tax savings, less maintenance again as it's brand new. Building insurance is covered by the body corporate, really close to amenities, which is hard to find with house and land this close. So that's generally, if you want something really close to a city, then you generally are looking at a unit or an apartment. And again, this one is still growing in value. So you're still getting your short-term benefit and your long-term benefit of that property growth. Okay, so we're moving on with our life cycle again, and now we're planning a baby and we're going down to one income. So if you're living this scenario, it's likely you're reducing down to one income for a period of time. You likely already have a deposit available, you've been working and you've been saving, and you need a property that is high cash flow in order to reduce your out-of-pocket expenses while you're on reduced income. So what does this look like? Purchasing a dual occupancy property does allow you to maximise your rental income. That means though that you need to borrow up to 80%, as banks will only lend up to 80% for dual occupancies. Purchasing new, again, to maximise depreciation tax savings. So a property club property on the Sunshine Coast, offering the first tenant guarantee. It's a dual occupancy in a growing area with full turnkey package, which means it's ready to move in. And again, we're looking at this scenario as though we're paying for our deposit with cash. So again, income of $70,000 each. We're not residing in the property, doubling cycle 12 years, interest rate of 4.2%. Our cost to hold this property is $210 positive a week. So that's phenomenal. That's really great, especially if you are planning on going on maternity leave. That's a really great income generator there. Okay, so what does the cash flow look like? So your outgoings is $547 a week. Again, remembering that that's covering your rates, it's covering your mortgage, all of your expenses. Your rental income for the dual occupancy home is $716 a week. All right, so your tax savings is less. It's only $42 because obviously you're making money. So that's why, and you can see the different scenarios that if you were trying to reduce tax, this is probably not a property that you would choose because you're wanting to have more of a cash flow available to you. So with those tax savings, this property is in surplus, $210 per week. So again, when reducing down to an income, that's quite a beneficial little money generator there. So the main purpose being higher cash flow with the added benefit of still growing in value. So just because you've picked this property doesn't mean that it's going to be less in the long term in terms of growing in value. You're still gaining that. Less maintenance as it's brand new. Still receiving your tax savings, not as much though, just as we've talked about, but it is cash flow positive, which again, not all house and land packages are. So that one's a really exciting property there. So we've just covered off 3 of those life cycle events, but obviously it's really important to have a think about what's going on with you, what's coming up, so that you can talk to your property mentor and talk about what's going to work for you now while still getting those long-term benefits. So our call to action. First of all, understand your situation. Complete a financial wealth check. It's a free understanding of your finances, and you need to know your financial situation in order to set your goals. So in comparison with tonight's webinar, if you want to understand what you need, then you also need to understand where you are. So download the FWC and the attachments of this webinar and send it through to yick@propertyclub.com.au. We'll pass your your financial wealth check form onto your property mentor or a club broker. If you know where you stand already and you know what you need or what you want, tell us what property you want. Complete a needs analysis form, which is also in the attachments of this webinar, and send it to yick@propertyclub.com.au. We have awesome researchers that are out there looking for properties that suit each individual. Which is obviously the theme of tonight's webinar. So it's really important that we do understand exactly what it is that you're looking for so that we can find it for you. If one of the properties that we've mentioned tonight is of interest and you think that you'd like some more information about it, email yick@propertyclub.com.au. We will pass on your details to your property mentor. If you don't have one, then we'll certainly find somebody to assist you in order to make sure that you get that information. So if there's only one takeaway from tonight, and that is really think about where you are, where you want to be, and help that to guide the decisions that you make. And next month, our webinar is going to be about getting investment ready for the new year, which is a really great webinar to go to in order to talk about setting your goals. So if you're not quite there yet in terms of knowing what you need, or you're not quite there yet with the deposit, it's time to set your goals so that you know what you're working towards. So come along to next month's webinar. And we'll talk about getting you investment ready for the new year. So we'll leave the webinar open just for another minute or so that you can download those attachments. But thanks for coming tonight, everybody.